Matter naturally breaks down. Left alone, physical systems decay toward entropy. Living organisms are the rare mathematical exception. They actively resist this decay. This diagram maps the parameters that separate the animate from the animate. We see structural traits like cellular makeup and active behaviors, growing, reproducing, and responding to stimuli. But fundamentally, every biological entity relies on one absolute baseline. It must obtain and use energy. To maintain this baseline and achieve homeostasis, organisms run a continuous suite of integrated background systems. These processes operate relentlessly, even while the organism is resting or sleeping. This infographic details that network of life processes. We see transportation, respiration, excretion, reproduction, and metabolism, all operating as an interconnected loop. Biological life operates as an ongoing engineering problem. Without a constant input of external fuel, these interlocking systems lose power and inevitably collapse. Within that network, nutrition is the prerequisite system. It is the engine that powers all the others. Nutrition is strictly the process of acquiring the chemical food needed for nourishment and biological sustenance. At the macro level, nature divides this fuel acquisition problem into two distinct architectural strategies: autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs build their own organic fuels from raw environmental data. Heterotrophs act as consumers, forced to extract pre-existing organic compounds from other entities. An organism's physical structure strictly dictates its metabolic strategy. You are built either to synthesize energy or to steal it. Photoautotrophs, specifically plants, bypass the need to consume other life by directly harnessing solar radiation. This outlines the autotrophic mechanism. The plant absorbs raw materials, sunlight, atmospheric carbon dioxide, and water. Through photosynthesis, it executes a chemical exchange, converting them into a glucose carbohydrate, exhausting oxygen as a byproduct. The internal hardware making this possible is chlorophyll. Housed within the green tissues, it acts as a solar receptor, trapping light energy to physically split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Leaves rely on specialized pores to secure carbon dioxide. This diagram shows stomata, flanked by guard cells. Their water content acts as a mechanical switch. Changing pressure causes them to swell or shrink, opening and closing the pore to regulate gas exchange. Autotrophic nutrition is a closed-loop manufacturing process. It transforms inert environmental elements into the foundational organic fuel that sustains the rest of the planet. Heterotrophs lack chlorophyll. To survive, they must dismantle and consume the organic compounds built by autotrophs or other heterotrophs. At the microscopic level, organisms like the amoeba execute a holozoic strategy. It physically alters its shape, extending pseudopodia to engulf whole food particles. Once engulfed, the process of phagocytosis continues internally. The food is locked inside a vacuole, where digestion, absorption, and assimilation happen directly within the cytoplasm. Other heterotrophs bypass digestion entirely through parasitic nutrition, attaching to a living host and draining its resources without immediately killing it. This diagram of the leech, Hirudinaria granulosa, details the hardware evolved for parasitic extraction. On the ventral view, specialized structures, the anterior sucker and mouth, are engineered specifically to latch onto a host and extract nutrients directly from its body. Whether it is an amoeba engulfing a cell or a leech draining a host, heterotrophic survival requires specialized physical mechanisms to execute organic theft. Human digestion scales this holozoic strategy up to a massive degree, relying on a highly specialized 30-foot pipeline called the alimentary canal. The first phase occurs in the buccal cavity, where teeth act as mechanical shears, physically dismantling ingested food. Chemical dismantling begins simultaneously, as salivary glands inject amylase, binding the material into a workable bolus. Transit is active. The bolus is pushed down the esophagus toward the stomach via peristalsis, a constant wave-like muscular contraction. Upon reaching the stomach, the bolus drops into a highly corrosive environment where the inner lining continuously secretes hydrochloric acid. This acid serves a dual purpose. It kills incoming harmful bacteria, and it triggers inactive prorenin and pepsinogen, converting them into active enzymes that begin cleaving proteins into smaller peptides. Through intense muscular churning and acid exposure, the stomach melts the solid bolus down into a fine, semi-soluble fluid known as chyme. It is now prepped for total chemical breakdown. The acidic chyme exits the stomach and enters the duodenum, the first section of the 20-foot small intestine. This vector schematic isolates that region, alongside the liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas positioned just behind the stomach. There is an immediate crisis upon entry. The chyme is dangerously acidic. The liver intervenes by secreting bile, stored in the gallbladder. This bile flows through the common duct and is injected into the duodenum, flipping the chyme's pH to alkaline. This alkaline shift is a prerequisite to activate the next weapons, pancreatic juice. The pancreas delivers a specific enzymatic payload into the duodenal space, trypsin to dismantle proteins, amylase to break down starches, and lipases to tear apart fats. The duodenum operates as the ultimate chemical reactor. Here, the complete molecular dismantling of the food, a process initiated in the mouth, is finally achieved. By the time the chyme reaches the ileum, the later region of the small intestine, the biological goal shifts from chemical breakdown to molecular extraction. This cross-section of the intestinal wall reveals its internal architecture. It is densely packed with microscopic, finger-like projections called villi and microvilli. This extreme folding drastically maximizes the internal surface area, allowing for maximum physical contact with the digested nutrients. Simple, broken-down molecules pass through the semi-permeable membranes of these villi via diffusion, moving directly into the body's internal transport system. The remaining waste material is passed to the colon, which acts as a final cleanup phase, reclaiming water and electrolytes before egestion. The entire 30-foot macroanatomy of the digestive tract, with all its mechanical shearing and acid baths, exists for one reason: to isolate and deliver invisible molecular building blocks to these microscopic folds. Once extracted, these isolated nutrients are assimilated out of the gut and distributed systematically across the entire body. This returns us to our initial biological problem. This infographic reminds us that assimilated fuel is the required input to counteract entropy. The extracted nutrients directly feed the body's metabolism and respiration nodes, powering the organism at a cellular level. Life operates as a continuous thermodynamic engine. Survival is strictly a question of how efficiently biological architecture can capture, process, and
deep in the cellular core, a fire that's burning for more. We take the world in to breathe and build up the logic we weave. Nutrition and movement in lines. Excretion is leaving designs. From microbe to animal's hand, these core functions govern the land. Do it over and over again, transporting the pulse in the vein while control is the light in the brain. Excretion, where the endings are starting again. Plants turn the sunlight to gold. Photosynthesis stories are told, converting the water and air for a glucose that's hidden and rare. Transpiration is key to the flow, to move where the minerals go. A garden of green in the sun, where the work is never quite done. Sensitivity to a simple touch. Reproduction means wanting it much. Growth is the slow way to climb, while animals race against time. But plants have a movement as well, a story that's silent to tell.